African leaders that are working against Traoré in favor of their political Western godfathers. Welcome to Niger Anchor News on another edition of Let's Talk Politics. So something powerful is happening in Africa, and it's a shift, it's a shake and a storm, and it's all rooted in the bold actions of one young leader, Ibrahim Traoré of Burkina Faso. At just 37 years old, Traoré is doing what many African leaders before him only pretended to do. He's confronting neocolonialism head-on, kicking out foreign troops, rejecting foreign influence, and also building a model of self-determination that centers the will of his people. But not everyone is clapping for Traoré. Some of his biggest opponents are not in Paris or Washington. They are right here on the continent. Fellow African presidents, leaders who despite their national flags have built their power on the backs of Western approval. These are the men who answer first to their godfathers in the West before they listen to the cries of their own people. Let's start with Alassane Ouattara of Côte d'Ivoire. In 2023, when Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger cut military ties with France and moved to expel French troops, Ouattara did the exact opposite. He reaffirmed military cooperation with Paris. He even hosted French soldiers pulled out of Burkina Faso and Mali. Why? Because Ouattara's survival has always been tied to French support. So when the post-election crisis in 2010 plunged Côte d'Ivoire into chaos, it was French tanks that escorted him into power. So since then, he has served as a loyal gatekeeper for French economic and security interests in West Africa, protecting companies like Bouygues and Total Energies and keeping the CFA France alive. Traoré's anti-French stance threatens to unravel this fragile arrangement. So if Ivorian youth see Burkina Faso standing tall without France, the question will quickly become, why is Ouattara still kneeling? Then we have Bola Ahmed Tinubu of Nigeria. He's another case of loyalty to foreign influence, or godfathers rather. Because after his controversial 2023 election, Tinubu wasted no time causing up to Western power, attending economic forums in France and the United States, welcoming multinational oil and tech companies. But the clearest example of him acting on behalf of foreign interests came through ECOWAS. Under Tinubu's chairmanship, ECOWAS imposed devastating sanctions on Mali, on Burkina Faso and Niger, the three countries that had just expelled French troops and were advocating for full sovereignty. The worst is, Tinubu even pushed for military intervention in Niger to restore democracy, a move that suspiciously echoed French and US rhetoric. But let's be real, democracy wasn't the concern. The real concern was that Niger had just ended Western military presence and nationalized uranium contracts, long dominated by French firms. So Tinubu was trying to protect the old order where Nigeria played big brother on behalf of its Western sponsors, and in return, those sponsors turned a blind eye to internal repression and then elite corruption. How about Paul Kagame of Rwanda, who has played the long game? The West sees him as the development miracle man, and Kagame works hard to protect that image, no doubt about it. Rwanda is one of the largest recipients of foreign aid per capita in Africa. The United States, the United Kingdom, the EU pour hundreds of millions into Kigali annually, and in return, Kagame keeps Rwanda tightly aligned with Western military and strategic interests. Rwanda has sent troops to Mozambique to help protect French-owned gas projects in Cabo Delgado. Kagame's military partnerships with the United States and Israel run so deep, so while he may not openly attack Traoré, Kagame quietly supports AU frameworks that isolate military-led governments like Burkina Faso's. So for him, the fear isn't coups, it's the collapse of the development model the West celebrates. If Traoré shows that you don't need IMF loans or Western consultants to build a nation, Kagame's carefully crafted legacy could come under fire from Pan-African youth who want real freedom and not foreign-managed stability. Let's talk about Macky Sall of Senegal. Even though he's no longer in power, in 2021 and 2023, during the mass youth-led uprisings against neocolonial influence, Sall responded with brutal police crackdowns and media blackouts. His government arrested dozens of opposition figures and journalists critical of French control over Senegal's economy. Why? The reason was, those protests were inspired by rising revolutionary energy across the region, energy fueled by leaders like Traoré. So on the south, Senegal remained deeply dependent on France, especially through the CFA France system. French firms dominated the telecom, the oil, and the banking sectors, and France, in return, backed South's administration and looked away when democratic norms were trampled. Traoré's anti-French, pro-sovereignty stance was a dangerous example to Senegalese youth who were already asking, why are we still using a colonial currency in 2025? Now consider Patrice Talon of Benin. He built his fortune in the cotton industry and maintains tight economic links with French corporate interests. Benin is still locked into the CFA France, and Talon has made no attempt to leave the system. Instead, he has deepened his ties with France, especially in the areas of finance, the trade, and the security. Burkina Faso and others began pushing for an exit from the CFA. Talon opposed any such move, calling it premature and saying it's too radical. Why? Because Talon's economic policies are tailor-made for stability that favors the elite and then the foreign investors, not ordinary citizens. If Traoré's model of breaking financial dependency catches on, Talon's business class technocracy is finished. The ripple effect could ignite calls in Benin to nationalize industries and also to demand local ownership of wealth. So what do these men really fear? Now, they are not afraid of Traoré as a man. They are afraid of a people-powered movement that demands sovereignty, self-determination, and then justice. They are afraid that African youth will no longer be content with rigged elections, the IMF handcuffs, or presidential puppets. They are afraid that their comfortable chairs, propped up by embassies, oil deals, and silence, might get pulled out from under them. And so they fight not for Africa, but for the system that feeds them. They sanction Traoré, they isolate Burkina Faso, they threaten war, push propaganda, lobby international bodies, because in the end, they are not defenders of the African dream. They are the last gatekeepers of a dying empire. But the people are watching and the people are waking up. That's the good thing about it. Let us talk politics, because the revolution is no longer a whisper, it's a roar. So before we wrap it for this edition, let's know what you have to say about this. And don't forget to like, to share, and to subscribe, and also hit the notification bell to keep you posted on our upcoming videos on Niger Anchor News.